Okay, grade 11s, we are going to be reading the play The Tender Branch. You'll see the PDF is in your content in D2L. Please open it and follow along as you listen to us read, just like you did with ESO. This one is a little bit more complex, okay? And this one, just like ESO, both of them are very valid for using on your essay. Yes, I said the word. It's coming up, okay? I want to go through the character list. In the PDF that I copied from the textbook, the character list has a mistake, so I'm going to read through it. John Whalen is a vigorous man of 70, a widower who lives in rural Prince Edward Island with his son. Okay. Harry Whalen is his middle-aged son. Wait, where's my John Whalen? Say hello. Okay, good. Quinn is going to be John. Harry. Where's Harry? Hi, Nico. Nico is playing Harry.
Hello.
Bernice Whalen is his daughter-in-law. She's married to Harry. Bernice, Kenzie. Jenny Whalen, his 7-year-old granddaughter. Patricia. In the textbook, it says Phyllis Arlington, but it's actually Viola Arlington, an attractive woman of 63, a widow who lives in Summerside, Prince Edward Island. And Viola is being played by Julia. Okay. And Phyllis Arlington is Viola's middle-aged daughter. So they just swapped those two characters by accident. And Phyllis is going to be played by Madeline. Yes. Emma, you're playing Percy, owner of the local general store. Ed and Jack, and also the minister at the bottom, are being played by Carrick. And Huey Pine, John's friend, Michael. Huey. Ida Mackenzie, a friend of John and his deceased wife, is being played by Gabby. Okay. Good. So, this play is a teleplay, just like the last one. So lots of the stage directions involve camera cues. Okay. But we will read the stage directions just like we did last time, and I will talk about the symbolism contained in those stage directions. Okay. And so, Act 1, fade in on Scene 1. Scene 1 is the exterior, so it's shot outside, it's at the highway, and it's daytime. A long shot of two figures on the bleak winter landscape. And grade 11s, we're going to start right there, looking at that stage direction. First of all, the word bleak, which means dismal or uninteresting, very gray, no life. And then winter. Winter in literature always used to symbolize death or coming death, approaching death. So we have this grayness, this bleakness, this barren landscape, and then winter symbolizing death. Literally, the play takes place during winter. Symbolically, that means something. Cut to Scene 2, exterior, highway, daytime. John Whalen and Jenny, his granddaughter, standing on the side of the highway waiting for the yellow school bus that approaches. John is a handsome man of 70, tall and slim and straight as a ramrod. The child is 7. And if we just look at those stage directions, especially about John, tall, slim, handsome, straight as a ramrod. Okay, that means he's got perfect posture and everything, but it also means that he's very straight and narrow. He's very conservative. He's very reserved with his emotions. Okay, Jenny?
I'm cold, Grandpa.
Here.
Kneeling. He lifts her scarf around her mouth and nose.
How's that, darling?
The little girl nods, touching her head gently.
I used to stand on this very spot years ago and put your father on the school bus. Did you know that?
She shakes her head negatively.
Wasn't long ago either. And it won't be long before you'll be doing the same with yours. That's the way life is.
Okay, grade 11s, we just look at the conversation in that first little bit. Okay, this is introducing the main idea of the play. The circle of life, the idea that soon enough, this little girl will be the one standing on the highway putting her grandchild on the bus. Things just have a way of happening that way. And John is saying it wasn't very long ago either. I may be 70, but I can remember when it was 40 years ago when I was putting my son on the bus. That's the way life is. Okay, this is introducing the fact that John is kind of in a retrospective right now. He's going over his life. Just then, the bus brakes to a stop, and the door comes open. John gives the child a hug and lifts her into the bus. As the door closes, he waves. The bus pulls away, leaving the old man standing on the highway, looking after it. And so the last shot of scene 2 would be this old man watching as the bus drives away on this bleak winter landscape. Okay? It gives us an image of him almost looking lonely, almost looking as if he's been left behind. Cut to scene 3. Scene 3 is interior, inside. It's the porch and it's daytime. John sits rocking in his Boston rocker, staring out the window at the softly falling snow. Pathetic fallacy. Falling snow, same as falling rain, okay? Indicates feelings of sadness, depression, loneliness. Harry, his son, entering the porch from the hallway. Harry is a large man in his mid-40s, with curly hair and thick glasses. The kind of man you expect to see slinging a side of beef over the bloodied shoulder of a white coat. It's typecasting, Nico. He leans unnoticed against the door jamb and sips his breakfast coffee from a large mug. He watches his father ruminatively. What a word. To ruminate means to think about. So he's sort of watching his father thoughtfully. John glancing at his watch. Then he stands, steps to the window, pushes his face close to the frosty glass, and peers out. Before we read, glancing at his watch indicates, before any words have been said, he's waiting for something and now it's time. And when he goes to the window, he's looking out for something. Harry, flatly.
Kind of early for the mail.
John stiffens, startled at the fact that he is not alone. He backs into the rocker and sits, then slowly he turns and stares at his son, crustily.
And what makes you think I'm waiting for the mail?
Harry, a little uneasy under the directness of his father's stare.
No reason, just thought you were, Dad.
A slight pause. John, rocking gently to the window.
I suppose some of those that hang around your service station think it's a fine joke.
What's that, Dad?
Taking out his tobacco and papers from his shirt pocket under his cardigan.
You know what? My ad in The Guardian.
I wouldn't know, Dad. I don't talk about it. It's none of their business.
Okay, stop there. So we're in exposition here, grade 11, and we're getting some stuff revealed to us through the dialogue, okay? So I guess you and your friends think it's a real joke, my ad in The Guardian. What ad is that? Well, and Harry knows there's an ad because he's been watching his father, and his dad's anxious to check the mail, okay? But Harry says, I don't know, it's none of their business. I don't talk about it. John.
What about you, Harry? What do you think? Am I an old fool?
Harry putting down his coffee mug.
It's none of my business, either. Well, I'll see you later. I'm late.
Harry buttons up his coat and goes out the porch door. John shakes the tobacco pack above the cigarette paper, but only a few shreds of tobacco fall out. He crumples the pack in anger and throws it to the floor. Cut to scene 4. Scene 4 is exterior, outside, highway, daytime. John walks briskly along the snowy highway, like a man used to walking daily. Okay, now if we go back to the beginning of the play, the descriptions of the characters, it says he's a vigorous man of 70. Okay, then the description of John in scene 2 says handsome man, tall and slim. Here it says like a man used to walking daily. This doesn't sound like an old man who's curling up and waiting to die, right? This is a healthy man of 70. He's got a lot of life in him, okay? However, he has to admit he is getting old. And the next stage direction says, suddenly his feet go out from under him and down he goes. Sitting on the highway, he grimaces with pain. And then the indignity of it hits him. And he scrambles as quickly as possible to his feet and angrily brushes himself off. So in the stage directions, talk about the word indignity. To slip and fall and then sit there in the snow is not dignified. And John feels like he needs to be a dignified man like he's always been. Scene 5, interior, general store, day. 3 men are in the store. Ed leans casually against the counter smoking. Jack has a newspaper spread on the counter and is turning the pages. And Percy, the owner, has a leg on the windowsill looking out at the highway. Percy, a beat.
Here comes old John Whalen. That man could walk me to death, and I'm 20 years his junior.
And to Jack.
His ad still in the paper?
Let's see. Yep. Retired widower wants a wife between the ages of 50 to 65. Protestant. Reply by letter. John Whalen. Hammerhead Bay, PEI.
Okay, stop there. That's the ad we're talking about. So John has placed a personal ad. Retired widower wants a wife. He wants her between 50 and 65. He's 70. Okay. What's really important in this ad is that he's asked for a Protestant. Okay. Protestants are Christians who are not Catholic. Okay. And there are many, many, many denominations of Protestant, but in Prince Edward Island, it's probably Presbyterian. Okay, because most of the settlers that came to the Maritimes were from England, Scotland, Ireland, and if they weren't Catholic, they were Presbyterian. Okay, but all it says in the play is Protestant. Okay, and in Prince Edward Island, in the Maritimes, especially when this play was written, your religion was an important part of your identity. Okay, if you know anything about Ireland, there's Protestants, there's Catholics, and they hate each other. And for more than 100 years, the Catholics tried to get independence. They killed Protestants. They tried to kill the royal family. You know, there's a lot of fighting between these two religions. So that's an important thing he put in there. I don't want a Catholic. Okay. Sorry, Ed.
Snow on the roof, but fire in the furnace.
What does that joke mean? That's a joke right there. Snow on the roof, but fire in the furnace. Okay. Meaning John's got white hair. He's an old man, but he's still got some fire in him, and it sort of implies almost a little bit of a dirty joke too, like the old devil, the randy old fellow still got a bit of, you know what. In the middle of chuckling over Ed's little joke, the door opens and in steps John Whalen. The laughter dies away. John closes the door. Percy moves behind the counter.
Morning, John. What can I do for you?
Crossing to the counter.
Have a pack of tobacco, Percy.
As Percy takes the tobacco down from the shelf, John glances at Jack, busy with his newspaper.
Mail been by yet, Jack?
Not yet, John.
Here you are. Anything else?
No, that's all.
He pays.
Thanks, Percy. Give my regards to the wife.
As John starts for the door,
Any of those lonesome widows you don't want, Mr. Whalen, be sure to send them my way.
John hesitates just a moment. There's silence in the store. Then he opens the door and exits without turning. So hesitates a moment. It's like he stops at the door. Everything goes silent. He doesn't turn around. What does that imply visually? Is he embarrassed? You know, is he afraid that people in the town think he's lost his mind? Because they've been teasing, they've been joking about him in the scene. Okay, he knows people are laughing at him. What was the first thing he said to his son? I suppose you and your friends down at the auto shop think it's a real joke. So he's uncomfortable about it, but he knows that he's put this ad in for a reason. Scene 6, interior, porch, daytime. John sits rocking in his chair, staring out at the highway. Suddenly, he springs from his chair and puts his nose to the window. From his point of view, we see the green pickup stop in front of his roadside mailbox, and the mailman put something in his box and drive off. John is visibly excited. Bernice, off camera, says,
Well, aren't you going to get the mail?
You pull back to reveal Bernice, his daughter-in-law. She's in her mid-40s. She treats the subject of the ad with amused tolerance. Kenzie, you're Bernice. Tell me what amused tolerance would mean to you as an actress.
Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay. Okay.
Like, I haven't, like, I just don't want to be wrong, but like.
Well, you said the line, like, with amused tolerance. You said it right.
Okay.
So grade 11, if we look at that stage direction, amused tolerance means you think it's a joke that your father-in-law's placed a personal ad. Come on, you're 70, gross, okay? But at the same time, okay, I'll tolerate it because it's Dad and it's John and he does his own thing, okay? So it's kind of like, well, aren't you going to go get the mail? Teasing him a bit, making fun of him. Everybody's making fun of this guy, okay? When this play was written in the 80s, 70 was still kind of old. 70's not old now, right? But kind of think about that in the context. Well, my mom's 75. She'd argue, okay? John.
You know, one of the things I resent about getting old? The way people sneak up on you. And as for the mail, I'll get it on my own good time.
And with that, he sits. That's important, John. You're very independent, right? And you know everybody's making fun of you, and you were excited and you jumped up, but as soon as Bernice says that, you're like, no, I'll go get it when I want. I don't want to give you the benefit. Bernice,
Do you want me to get it?
indignantly.
No, I do not.
He stands up and hitches up his trousers, a habit of his.
I may be 70 years of age, but I'm not incapacitated. Not yet, anyway.
Suit yourself, Dad.
As soon as Bernice exits the porch, John breaks into a grin and reaches for his galoshes and coat. Galoshes, rubber boots. Cut to scene 7. 7. Exterior highway, daytime. John crosses the highway, opens the front of the corrugated aluminum mailbox, and removes a letter. He is excited. He removes his gloves and slips on his reading glasses. Finally, he manages to rip open the envelope. He should react throughout the letter to its contents. John, reading aloud.
Dear Mr. Whalen, you must be a very direct and unorthodox man. At least your methods are. Or perhaps you are realistic enough to admit how little time is left for people like ourselves.
So let's just look. Why is he direct and unorthodox? Well, his letter was very direct, wasn't it? I want this. Between 50 and 65, Protestant. If you're interested, mail me. There's no BS. Okay? There's no lying, fake profile pictures, swipe left. Okay? It's just what you want. Okay? And then she says in that last sentence, so this is really important. Perhaps you are realistic enough to admit how little time is left for people like ourselves. You're realistic enough to know that we may not be dead yet, but there's not a lot of time left, so we can't waste time on doing the dance. Are we going to get to it or not? Scene 8, interior, John's bedroom, day. John sits on the edge of his bed reading the letter. So the letter continues.
At any rate, I would be pleased to meet you. I would rather not go into detail about myself in this letter. I expect to say that I am a widow. If you are interested, please contact. I am home most days. Best regards, Viola Arlington, 14 Elm Drive, Summerside.
He removes his reading glasses and sets the letter down on the bed. A pause. He picks up the brown-tinted, silver-framed wedding photo resting on his bedside table. From his point of view, POV's point of view, we see a young John Whalen and bride, circa 1921. He says softly,
Dorothy.
He sets the photo back on the table and looks curiously at his hands. Then, rising, he crosses to the bureau mirror and peers at himself up close. His hand moves across his face with wonder, with a sort of bewildered sorrow. Okay, so he wants to marry, he's lonely, but he still has feelings for his wife, who's clearly deceased. Then looking at his face in the mirror, how did I go from that guy in that picture to this old man in the mirror, right? 9, exterior, service station at a crossroads. It's daytime. This is Harry's service station. As John approaches, Harry is just finishing pumping gas. He screws on the gas tank lid.
12 o'clock. Go on home. Bernice has got a hot meal.
You sure you don't mind spelling me, Dad? Huey can go. What? Huey can do it.
Mind? I like it. Go on.
Then gesturing to the car.
Paid?
Harry as he climbs into his truck.
$3. See you at 1.
Take your time.
The man at the wheel rolls down the window and sticks out $3. John, beaming.
Thank you, sir. Come again.
The car pulls away and John starts for the office. Another important little moment. Okay? John goes down every day at lunch and relieves Harry for lunch. And Harry says, are you sure Huey could do it? But John likes to do it. Why does John like to do it? You're John Quinn. Why do you like to do it?
My guess is it makes him feel more wanted or more welcome.
Wanted, welcome, useful, not old, right? And then that beaming, that's the first time in the play that he beams. He's usually kind of crusty, right? Scene 10, interior, the office of the service station. It's daytime. Huey Pine leans against the Coke machine, chewing gum. He's the same age as John Whalen. John enters and closes the door.
Hello, Huey. Cold enough for you?
The winters are getting longer all the time, John. Longer and colder.
John goes behind the cash register and rings up the sale. Then he takes the broom and begins to sweep up, whistling to himself. A beat.
You want me to do that, John? I used to be a janitor, you know.
No,
John stops and considers, and then...
All right, if you want to.
Oh, thank you, John.
Okay, what just happened there? Michael, you tell me.
He let Huey take the broom and sweep up.
Why did he do that?
It kind of because I don't know.
It goes back to the stage direction at the start of scene 10. Huey is the same age as John Whalen. And then Huey said, "You want me to do that? I used to be a janitor, you know." He wants to feel useful and important and able to still do something. And John's like, "No, I want," oh, we're in the same boat. Yeah, here you go. There's a bit of empathy between the two of them. Huh?
Gotcha.
The broom switches hands, and John leans against the Coke machine while Huey sweeps happily. So Huey's happy about it. John, a beat.
I got an answer in the mail today.
Huey stops sweeping and leans on his broom.
You did.
I did. A widow from Summerside. Not a crackpot either. Sounds like a nice woman.
John, I never said a word to you before, but it seems to me that a man like yourself don't need to advertise for a wife. There's plenty of women in this village.
Maybe, Huey. Maybe.
Why, take Ida McKenzie. Now, there's a fine, attractive woman. She was a good wife to Gus for 35 years.
That she was.
And it's plain to see she's got a special fondness for you, John. Oh, I tell you, John, if it was me.
John, looking out at the bleak winter landscape. There's that bleak winter mentioned again, right? Okay. John says, go ahead. Sorry, John.
Oh, okay. No, Huey, I told myself long ago, if I was ever to remarry, it would be a complete. Wouldn't feel right about the woman Dorothy knew. That's the way I want it, and that's the way it's going to be. Dorothy would understand.
There's a pause, and then he simply states,
She was the love of my life, Huey. And I miss her bad.
and it cuts to scene 11. So Huey says, "There's a plenty of women in this village who'd love to marry you, John. Why? He's tall, he's thin, he's still fit, he's handsome, but he made a vow to himself he'd never marry anyone who knew his old wife because it wouldn't feel right." Okay, remember, he's a man of principle as well. Exterior, scene 11, exterior, highway, daytime. This is a stretch of highway looping a hill. The little United Church with its white pointed steeple and tiny cemetery sits atop the hill. Okay, so at the start when we talked about Protestant and I said he's probably Presbyterian, does anyone know what the United Church actually is? The United Church of Canada? Nobody, sort of? What it is two different Protestant sects that were struggling in the early 1900s joined together and formed the United Church, hence the word united. They were Presbyterian and Methodist. Okay, so it's kind of both. Anyway, this is the cemetery. Who's in this cemetery? Dorothy. The little United Church with its white pointed steeple and tiny cemetery sits atop the hill. The camera moves with John Whalen as he walks, his breath coming heavily. Finally, he stops, wipes his forehead. He has a single red rose in his hand. John to himself, irritated.
Must be getting old.
12, exterior, cemetery, daytime. A long shot of John moving among the headstones in the snow-covered graveyard. Graveyard and snow. They're really laying it on thick here, right? John standing beside his wife's grave. The stone is capped with snow too. He brushes the snow off the stone and then kneels, staring at the headstone. Now, I just want to point out for my grade 11s that her headstone is capped with snow. So is John. Remember the line from one of the guys at the store? No, snow on the roof, but fire in the furnace. Okay, so it's kind of suggesting he's halfway there to death, but not there yet, and he's got to move on. He brushes the snow off the stone and then kneels, staring at the headstone. John softly.
I brought you a rose, Dorothy.
And then intimately.
You know, it's strange. I always feel less lonely up here.
He places the single red rose on the snowy grave, and the camera begins to pull back slowly until we cut to scene 13. Scene 13. Interior dining room of John's house, nighttime. The family are all seated around the table. The meal is well in progress. Harry, a beat.
Bernice tells me you were shoveling snow again, Dad. You know that's too hard on your heart. You're not 40 anymore, you know?
I'm glad you told me, Harry.
Grandpa, can I have your dessert?
John smiling.
Of course you can, darling.
He passes her the dessert. Bernice to Jenny.
What do you say?
Thank you, Grandpa.
From now on, wait until I get home, will you? Or let Bernice do it.
John insulted.
Bernice?
All right, look
He's-
at that. Some old-fashioned sexism here. I'm not going to let Bernice shovel and I can do it. I'm a man. But of course,
It's
there's
fine. I
also
probably
that.
couldn't do it anyways.
It's actually really good cardio. Okay? But also there's that I'm not letting somebody younger do that for me. I've still got my fire in the furnace. Okay? Bernice?
He's only thinking of your own good, Dad.
Well, I appreciate that. What am I supposed to do? Curl up beside the furnace like an old dog? I'll die in no time flat.
Disgusted.
Bernice.
Bernice signals Harry. He nods. A beat then.
So you got a letter today from the ad.
Did. And that reminds me, Harry. I need to trek tomorrow. I'm driving to Summerside.
Bernice to Harry.
To see the lady.
Oh, Harry fighting back his anger.
Oh, you asked me this morning what I thought of this whole business. Well, now I'll tell you. I think you're making a fool of yourself, Dad, and the whole family along with it.
He throws down his napkin and gets up and walks angrily away from the table. Bernice to John.
Excuse me,
Calling.
Harry.
She gets up and exits after her husband.
What's wrong, Grandpa? Why is Daddy so mad?
Well, I guess he wants to start. Sorry. Well, I guess he wants me to start acting my age.
The slightest of pauses. Oh, that didn't come through. Can you say that again?
Oh, whatever that means.
And a fade out. Okay? And that fade out, we go to act 2. I guess he wants me to start acting my age, whatever that means. Okay? I'm not acting like what they expect a 70-year-old man to act like, and so it's upsetting them. Why do you think Harry's so upset, Nico?
I feel like because he knows that he's old and stuff, and he can't do stuff he wants to do, and I feel like he's kind of looking out for him, but old people can be really stubborn and they just want to do their own thing, and Harry, no, not Harry, John is kind of doing that, and and Harry just wants him to slow down, calm down.
Right, and he says you're embarrassing the whole family, but really, what he means by that is just, he's worried he's going to get hurt.
Right.
I think is part of it. So act 2, fade in, scene 14. 14 is the interior. It's the bathroom the next day. John is lathering up his face, whistling to himself. Then we cut to scene 15. Interior of John's bedroom, daytime. Sits on the bed, polishing his shoes. He holds up the toe to see if he can see himself in it. He nods with approval. So he's shaving, polishing his shoes. He's excited. He's whistling to himself. Some fire in the furnace. 16, interior of John's bedroom, daytime. John stands before his bureau mirror. He's dressed in his good blue suit, shirt, and tie. He smooths down his white hair and steps back to survey himself, smiling with ironic self-approval.
Don't look a day over 69.
And he cuts to scene 17. That's a bit of a joke there. Don't look a day over
Nice.
69. Yeah. 17, exterior, backyard of John's house. He climbs into the truck. He now wears his blue overcoat over his suit. Not just a winter parka that you throw on to go to the gas station, but your overcoat. Kind of a men's fashion thing that's gone out now. But overcoats usually long, pretty thick fabric, usually houndstooth pattern. Okay, it's fancy. He wants to look his best. 18, exterior, highway, daytime. John drives along. John, a beat, aloud to himself a little nervously. Now John's going to have a conversation with himself where he's sort of, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe this is stupid.
I don't know if I can live with another woman after Dorothy. It'd be strange for sure. Take a lot of getting used to.
A slight pause.
That's if she consents.
Another slight pause.
A big if.
A slight pause.
Why, she might take one good look at me and throw a fit of laughter.
Nodding.
Harry's right. No fool like an old fool.
Cut to scene 19. So that's like, in some analysis, that's called the belly of the whale, where the character starts to be filled with doubts and is almost ready to give in. Okay, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm an old fool. We cut to scene 19. It's exterior. It's quiet street in a small town, daytime. John pulls up in front of the house and shuts off the motor. He glances at the house and has a last-minute attack of nerves, aloud to himself.
I had a long and happy life with one woman already. That's more than most have. I should just drive away.
The slightest of pauses, indignantly.
And curl up behind the furnace like an old dog? The hell I will.
He whips open the door and gets out of the truck. He slams the door and walks around to the front of the truck and up the snowy walk to the small frame house. He hesitates a moment and then knocks. He waits. The door opens and a middle-aged woman answers. This is Phyllis, Mrs. Arlington's daughter. Phyllis, friendly?
Yes.
I'm John Whalen. I've come to see Miss Viola Arlington.
Oh.
Giving him the furtive once-over.
Oh. Come in, please.
Okay, do you know what furtive means, Madeline?
Isn't it, like, careful?
Careful, but like sneaky. Like if
Yeah.
you're doing it furtively, you're trying not to be noticed. So you're kind of giving him the look up and down, like deciding, is this guy good enough for my mom? Okay. John enters. She closes the door. We cut to scene 20. Interior hall, daytime. Phyllis taking his coat,
I'm Phyllis.
hanging it up.
Mother's upstairs. I'll go call her. The living room's on the left, Mr.
Whalen. John Whalen.
Phyllis starts upstairs and John enters the living room. We cut to scene 21. Interior of the living room, day. John looks around him and sits in a comfortable armchair. Silence. His stomach growls, so he folds his arms across it. Silence. The sound of the clock on the mantel is loud in the silence. He glances at the mantel, then rises and crosses to it. He picks up a photo. From his point of view, we see that it is of an elderly man, obviously Mr. Arlington. At that moment, Mrs. Arlington appears in the entrance to the living room.
That's my late husband. He was a dentist. We were married 26 years. I'm Viola Arlington.
A little embarrassed, John sets the photo down on the mantel and turns.
I'm John Whalen.
Mrs. Arlington crosses the room and shakes John's hand.
I must tell you, my daughter thinks you're very handsome, man.
Does?
She's been trying to marry me off for 3 years now. Oh, I don't blame her. She'd like to get me out of under the foot. Won't you sit down?
They both
Would you
sit.
like an ashtray?
Oh wait, let me read the stage directions.
Sorry.
The slight pause. She'd like to get me out from underfoot. So this situation's different. Okay? Phyllis wants Viola sort of out of the house and married off and like living her life still. Whereas Harry wants John where he can watch him and protect him. There's a sort of a different situation. They both sit on the sofa.
Would you like an ashtray?
No, thank you.
I should offer you a drink.
I'm not a drinking man, Miss Arlington.
Call me V.
Vi. Vi.
I know. Neither am I, John. I never touched a drop of liquor in my life. Well, that's a lie. I did once at my wedding.
A slight pause.
I'm 63 years of age.
I'm 70.
A slight pause.
Well,
A slight pause.
So sorry, is it Vi or V? Or
It's Vi.
Vi. Vi, I won't beat around the bush. I'm not much for small talk and such. Never was. Besides, we both know why I'm here, and we both had a moment to look at each other over. Personally, I like what I see.
why, thank you.
John stands, paces the room nervously.
And I think I should be frank. If we do marry, there are certain conditions.
I'm listening.
First, when I pass away, I'm to be buried alongside my late wife. I won't have it any other way. The plot is already paid for.
I understand, John.
And if I go first, the house will be yours, but my other property, some 30 acres of farmland, will go to my son, Harry. And after you, the house is to revert to my son. That'll be drawn up in a new will.
That seems fair, John.
Relaxing, patting his forehead with a handkerchief and smiling.
Well, I guess that's all.
So very,
No.
so really business-like, right? Okay, here's my conditions. Okay, let's get married. Boom. It's not necessarily a marriage of love, although it could turn into love. It's a marriage of convenience for both of them. And, okay. So he says, well, I guess that's all. Viola, you've got one important thing that you have to reveal.
No, there's one other thing, John.
A slight pause.
I'm Catholic.
The smile fading. He sits. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. Catholic?
He sits.
Didn't I make myself clear in the ad? Catholic.
I suppose I thought if. Oh, sorry. That's you.
I suppose I thought if we met, I just took it for granted that we both were in the same boat, so to speak. Or you wouldn't have advertised, I wouldn't have written.
John, confused.
You see, Vi, I came from a long. I come from a long line of diehard Irish Protestants, and there's never been a Catholic inside our front door, let alone inside our family. Generation after generation of Orangemen.
Okay, so I just want to explain what the Orangemen are. The Orangemen are the Irish Protestants, very, very staunch Protestants, and they loathe Catholics. Catholics loathe them. All of the fighting in Ireland over the last 100 years between the Irish Republican Army, who were Catholic, and the Protestants, it was usually the Orangemen who would stoke the fires and get it going, and then the Catholics would retaliate. And it's only since 2006 that there was a ceasefire in Ireland. Look it up. Interesting history. Okay, and I've got a personal story to tell you. When my parents got married, my mom is Catholic. My father was raised Anglican, but his mother was actually raised in an Orangeman family in Thunder Bay, Ontario, lots of Irish Protestants. She converted to Anglican when she married my grandpa. And Anglican is very close to Catholic, but it wasn't Catholic, so it was okay. But when my parents got married, she gave my mom a hug and said, I love you very much, but I want you to know my father's turning in his grave right now. My mom was like, well, that's a nice thing to hear on my wedding day. But, times have changed, but that's why John's so upset, so confused. Okay. He doesn't even really understand the history behind why there's never been a Catholic in the family, but that's just the way it is. Right? Okay. A pause, as if that's not enough of an explanation.
Why, just the mention of Rome was enough to raise my father's blood pressure.
He stands.
No, I'll have to think about this, V. Bye.
Will you do that, John? I'll be pleased to hear from you. As I said before, I'm home most days.
Now, I want to point out Viola seems a lot like John. No nonsense, straight to it. I'll be pleased to hear from you. If you say no, okay, but I'm Catholic and that's not changing. Okay? We cut to scene 22. It's the exterior, John's house, daytime. The truck pulls up into the lane and John climbs out and walks up to the front porch. His walk lacks its former bounce. He looks dejected and lonely. He thought he'd found someone, and now he's got this dilemma. Interior, dining room of John's house, evening. Silence. The camera pans slowly around the table. Jenny, Harry, Bernice, and stops on John, a beat. John looks up. John, crustily.
Well, doesn't anybody want to know how it went?
Harry and Bernice say nothing.
I've got good news for you, Harry. Mrs. Arlington's a Catholic.
Grandpa, what's a Catholic? Is that bad? Is it, Grandpa?
John looks at the child, struck by her questions. It always takes the innocence of a child, right? Okay. What's a Catholic? Is that bad? Is it, Grandpa? Is Viola a bad person? I mean, they're setting it up that she seems to be a pretty good person. She's a nice person. She's a lot like John in many ways, but the only difference is she's Catholic, right? He's struck by her questions. We hold the camera on a close-up of his face. He can't answer them. Okay? He's never really stopped to think about it. It's just, we don't like Catholics, and that's the way it is. Okay? Interior of John's bedroom at night. John is lying in bed reading his Bible. He closes it, tucking it under his chin, aloud, softly, impressed with one of the verses.
Life is but a shadow that passeth away.
He nods.
Yes.
He removes his glasses and puts the glasses and the Bible on the bed table and clicks off the light. In the darkness, the moonlight breaks through the window and spotlights a corner of his bed. The ticking of the clock is loud in the silence. In the darkness, the camera moves in for a close-up of John. He begins to softly hum a bar or two of a hymn, and then he starts to sing it very softly, almost a whisper, and we cut to scene 25. Exterior, highway, daytime. The sun is shining. It is one of those gorgeous winter days just before spring. Okay, now you've got more pathetic fallacy given to you in the stage directions. Okay, one of those gorgeous winter days just before spring. What happens? What kind of day is that? Okay, when you know you can feel like the underneath the snow, the earth is already starting to grow. Okay, has John made his final decision yet? Any of my readers want to answer? Gabby, what do you think? Has John made his final decision?
I don't think so.
Not yet, but he's starting to really think about it.
I think he's.
Yeah.
I think he's torn.
He's torn, but he's starting to think. Like Jenny's questions really made him think. And if you look at the Bible verse, life is but a shadow that passeth away. Life goes by really quickly. And do we really want to waste what little of it there is left on dividing lines that don't really make any sense? Right? So it's that winter day just before spring. It's not quite winter anymore. He's not old and near death. There's almost new life coming, but he hasn't quite got there yet. Okay, so for my grade 11s, that's what stage directions are really good for. And these ones are a little bit more clear than the ones in ESO. ESO was a bit of an introduction to this. This one's a little bit more involved. John is walking along, his Bible in one hand, Jenny in the other. And the hymn that he had just begun to sing in the previous scene is picked up now, being sung in the background by the church choir, as if it were coming from a great distance away. This is the stretch of highway, scene 13, approaching the church. Ida Mackenzie, 60, stands at the foot of her lane as John and Jenny approach. So she's waiting at, the end of her walkway on the street as they're walking up. Ida, if you'll recall, grade 11s, was John's friend and his wife's close friend. Okay, Ida?
Morning, John.
John nods.
Ida?
Going to church?
I am, unless the devil waylays me.
I'll walk along with you.
My pleasure.
Ida takes his arm. The camera moves along with them. Ida, a beat.
I see your ad still in the Guardian. Had a good mind to write you myself, John. Whalen?
Whalen. John's smiling.
Don't say. Why? Ida Mackenzie. What would a fine figure of a woman like yourself want to do with the likes of an old reprobate like me?
Haven't lost a bit of your charm.
Wait, can we do that line again? Gabby, can you do that one again?
Sorry, my Wi-Fi keeps cutting out.
Yeah, that's okay.
Haven't lost a bit of your conceit, have you, John Whalen? Nor your charm.
Ida, you and I go back a long spell. Too far, I guess.
Then?
I love Gus like a brother.
And I thought the world of Dorothy.
A slight pause.
Well, I don't suppose there's much point in pursuing business on the Sabbath.
Another pause.
I must say I admire your delicate footwork.
As they continue to stroll along. So what happened in this scene, without actually being said, is that Ida basically was like, if you're interested, I would marry you. And John tells her, I can't. I loved Gus, her husband, like a brother, and she says, and I thought the world of Dorothy. We've just known each other too long. And I don't suppose there's much point in pursuing business on the Sabbath. So through church talk, by saying you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath, the day of rest, we're not going to pursue this business any further. I understand your position. If you wanted me, I would have you, but I can understand why you don't. And then she says, I must say I admire your delicate footwork. What she means by that is you've let me down gently and I appreciate it. Okay? It's not that you aren't attracted to me or that we weren't friends. It's that it was too close to your former wife. Okay? It's a great conversation for subtext. The characters are saying one thing, but it means something else. Okay? We cut to scene 26. This is the climax. Okay? As John sits in the church, the minister is reading a verse from the book of Job in the Bible, and parts of that verse really strike John, and they really they speak to him. Okay? It's very small inside, the kind of village church that hasn't changed in almost 100 years. And that's an important stage direction. What else hasn't changed in almost 100 years? The attitudes and views of the people. Like John, who said, a Catholic's never even been in our front door, let alone in our family. Okay? But this church, ironically, is going to be the place where John has that change. The minister is at the pulpit just ending his sermon. John is seated with Jenny in the family pew. Minister?
And Job said,
Reading from the Bible.
My days are past, my purposes are broken off, even the thoughts of my heart.
Look at that first. My days are past. Okay, for a 70-year-old man, most of his life is past now. Okay, John, listening to all this, the words imbued with special meaning. Imbued means filled with. Okay, these words have a special meaning to him now. Over.
They changed the night into day. The light is short because of darkness. If I wait, the grave is mine house. I have made my bed in the darkness. And where is now my hope? As for my hope, who shall see it?
Minister closing the Bible.
Let us pray.
The congregation bows its head.
Dear Heavenly Father, grant in the midst of our loneliness and despair, we might remember another verse from Job, chapter 14, verse 7.
John looking straight up at the minister. So that's actually really important. John knows his Bible well, and you know that because earlier we saw he reads it every night. When the minister says Job chapter 14, verse 7, John looks straight up at him. I know that verse, and it strikes him. You're talking about me right now. Is the minister actually talking about John? Well, he's talking to the whole congregation, but we can hear what we need to hear in these things. Okay? This is me selling you on once in a while, just, having a listen to a sermon. Sometimes you can hear something in it that and it's not necessarily what the preacher wanted you to hear. Okay? And so he looks straight up at the minister, and on camera, this would be very dramatic. Okay? Straight up, you're touched by this. And voiceover.
For there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Amen.
John, softly.
Amen.
Okay, now if you look, the tender branch is the title of the play. John is the tree that has been cut down. The loss of his wife, the depression, the loneliness, but it is now a tender branch growing again. Okay? If we look at the stage directions on the previous page, it's that gorgeous winter day just before spring when the green buds, you can almost feel them thrusting through the snow. John is one of those green buds. He's ready to burst forth. Okay? I think he's made his decision, but we're not quite there yet. 27, exterior of the church, day. The service is over and the congregation files out and down the church steps, dispersing. John takes Jenny's hand and leads her around the side of the church. Exterior, 28, exterior cemetery, day. John and Jenny approach Dorothy's grave. Jenny.
Is this where Grandma lives?
John smiling.
That's right, darling.
Kneeling.
You don't remember her, do you?
He brushes away the snow until he finds the rose he left there the day before.
You were too little.
He stands and puts the rose on top of the gravestone.
Is Grandma cold?
No, I don't think so.
Jenny.
I am. How come Grandma's not? Is it because she lives under the snow?
Something like that, darling.
Okay, and we cut to scene 29. So, exterior of the highway, it's day. John and Jenny walking toward a stationary camera. Jenny? John, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Jenny, would you like a new grandma? Someone who doesn't live under the snow?
Yes, Grandpa. Can I have one? Can I?
John smiling.
We'll see, darling. We'll see.
Then.
Maybe tomorrow. I'll take a little ride. Would you like to go into Summerside for a visit?
they pass the camera, and it's a cut to John and Jenny walking away from the camera down the winter highway. As the credits roll, they gradually diminish in the distance, and we have a final fade out. Okay, why do you think he's going to bring Jenny to meet this lady? Jenny, can you answer that?
Because just like when she asked, is a Catholic bad? And you said like something about a child's innocence to break you out of your like prejudice, I guess. He's bringing Jenny to her to, I guess, get like Jenny's approval too.
Mm-hmm.
And yes.
And if Jenny likes this woman, then that's good enough for me. And he's already made his decision. I can't waste time on artificial lines. Catholic, Protestant, we both worship God. We both pray, you know. Do I really want to waste my life with these artificial dividing lines? And so he's become the tender branch, and it will not cease. Okay, he's allowed himself to grow again, to relive. Okay, if any of you were lucky enough in grade 10 to read To Kill a Mockingbird, it's always the child innocence that destroys the evil or the violence or the injustice in the world. Okay, grade 11s that are watching this video, if you were in 10-1 last year and you read it, you know what I'm talking about. For example, when the lynch mob has come to lynch Tom Robinson and they're about to possibly kill Atticus to get to him, until Scout stands up and says, "Hey, Mr. Cunningham," and breaks the mob up, because reminds them all, oh, we're individuals and this is really embarrassing. And we were just going to hurt Atticus. It's the same thing here. Grandpa, what's a Catholic? Is that bad? And Grandpa has to go, well, no, I guess not. Okay, good. So that's the end of the play, grade 11s. And then when you open D2L for content, the post-reading questions will be there as well. Okay, I did a lot of teaching throughout it, and so my questions basically will just guide you through the stuff I said. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.